Retro.
Are you an aspiring Jedi, or do you dabble with the dark side of the Force?
Regardless of whether you fancy yourself a defender of the light or an aspiring Sith Lord, you're going to need a lightsaber.
Podcast Stardust is pleased to partner with Saber Masters, the creators of high-quality, durable, and affordable lightsabers.
Saber Masters is preparing to launch the Ultimate Lightsaber 2.0, and right now you can get 2 for the price of 1.
So, check out the link in our show notes and go get your Ultimate Lightsabers from Saber Masters.
And don't forget to use our referral code Stardust to save $10 at checkout.
And each purchase using our referral code helps support Podcast Stardust.
This is John Jackson Miller, author of Star Wars Kenobi, Star Wars A New Dawn, Star Wars Lost Tribe of the Sith, Star Wars Knight Errant, and the upcoming Star Wars The Living Force. And you're listening to Podcast Stardust with Dennis and Jay. May the Force be with you.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And it's time for a look at this week's Star Wars news. But before we dive into the news, Jay, remind everybody where we can be found on social media.
Of course, Dennis, we are very easily and conveniently found at Podcast Stardust on all of your social media outlets, including Instagram, Facebook, and X.
All right. The dish is aligned. The signal is boosted to maximum output. The shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So there's not a whole lot of news, but there are some things to talk about. So we'll dive right on into it. And up first, last week we were talking about how there has been a writer for Shawn Levy's Star Wars movie. And the reports were that it was going to be Jonathan Trooper. Shawn Levy has since confirmed that. And he's quoted as saying, "I am happy. That's one secret I don't have to keep keeping. And Jonathan Trooper is writing my Star Wars film. We did the Atom Project together, and we have an idea that's really exciting to us and exciting to Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy and Chief Creative Officer Dave Filoni. One never knows if development reaches the starting gate, but my hope is that it will." Later on, and this was a interview that he did with On Demand Entertainment, which is some sort of a London-based sneak peek for Wolverine or Deadpool and Wolverine. And then he was also said, when he was asked some details about it, he said, "I definitely can't share anything. I've been so well trained by Stranger Things and Marvel that my lips are sealed," which is probably very wise.
Yes.
So we got that news confirmed, which is cool. This keeps sounding like more and more of a sure thing that it's like not someone thinking they're going to do a Star Wars movie, because I think this is like the most direct comment that's been made about this movie being in some stage of development.
Yes, I agree.
But I also like the fact that he was very real in that final sentence of that first quote I read that said, "One never knows if development reaches the starting gate, but my hope is that it will."
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably a very wise thing to say, because this movie has never formally been announced. It's really only been Shawn Levy talking about it.
Right, exactly.
Because Lucasfilm hasn't said anything about it. But, I mean, they haven't contradicted him. So that's great. But, given so many films that have been announced and never gotten off the starting blocks, I kind of like the approach that they're taking here.
Oh, I do too. And like you said, it's very practical, very realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that it just cracks me up. It's one secret I don't have to keep keeping.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like he's very upfront and just very for real about it, and this is what's happening. And I also appreciate the quote that I've been well trained by Stranger Things and Marvel that my lips are sealed. He's saying it's going to happen, but he can't say exactly what it's going to be.
Right. Yeah. And it could be anything, given the movies that he's worked on. That's a pretty broad spectrum of stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, even if this does happen, or at least 3-4 years away from this movie because
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
he's got to get Stranger Things done, and that's going to take time to get all that filmed and then through production, et cetera, et cetera. And the Star Wars movie still got to get written. How long is that going to take? We're still waiting on a script for the Rey movie to get delivered, as far as I know, and we don't even have an update on where they stand on the Mandalorian and Grogu, and that's the next movie coming. So,
Sure.
I'm guessing. What do you think, Jay? 2028, 2029, if this movie's going to happen?
Yeah, 2028 at the earliest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed because I want to see some of these things start getting across the finish line, and
Mhm.
it's been a long time.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Well, in the world of Star Wars on television, more specifically Disney Plus, Ahsoka has received 5 Primetime Emmy Award nominations. And those nominations include Outstanding Fantasy Sci-Fi Costumes, Outstanding Period or Fantasy Sci-Fi Hairstyling, Outstanding Prosthetic Makeup, Outstanding Sound Editing for a Comedy or Drama Series, Half Hour, and Animation. And the final one is Outstanding Special Visual Effects in a Season or a Movie. I just find it, as an aside, kind of weird that, one category is fantasy sci-fi costumes, and then we have comedy and drama. It gets classified as different things. It's
Right.
not really consistent there. But
Yeah.
anyway, this is cool. I'm glad it's getting this recognition.
Oh, yes, as it should. I mean, these are all very well-deserved accolades, and I hope that the series picks up as many as possible. And I will say that there's a few of these that I actually follow on Instagram, and one
Mhm.
of them that is part of this is the hairstyling. And Maria Sandoval, who is at Hair Department, etc., or ETC on Instagram, is always very appreciative of sharing stories and any kinds of comments and things that you'll make to her.
Mhm.
I've put some things on through my cosplay Instagram, and she always thanks me through the stories for sharing different things. So the people that are behind the scenes are very real people, and they're very hardworking people. And so, as much accolades as we can try to support for them, I'm here for it. So hopefully they'll snag as many as possible.
Yeah, the one I'd like to see one of all these, but the one I'm really pulling for is fantasy sci-fi costumes because
Oh
this was
yeah.
Donna Tripchick's last project before she passed away.
Yes. Yes.
And so I'm really hoping that she and not that she can appreciate it, but for her family and just as recognition of all the outstanding work that she did for Star Wars in the past several years.
Well said. Yes.
Yeah.
And she definitely leaves an amazing legacy behind for sure.
Yeah,
And
I
I
remember
know that go ahead.
I would say I know in the past you talked about how appreciative she was of the community
Hmm.
as well, and how she would talk about some of the ways the costumes that were created, and that was helpful for cosplayers and such.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And if there's anybody that's going to San Diego Comic-Con, I know that there is a fan-based little get-together that is being coordinated to honor Shauna Tripchick at the con. So, if anybody's interested, just check out some of my stories, and you'll see some of the things that I'm posting up there. I will not be able to go, but I want to try to put the word out there for anybody who might be attending.
Hmm. Yeah, I get the feeling Star Wars is not beyond some of the. I think they're having a special effects stage, something or other like that. But I don't think Star Wars is going to have too big a presence from the studios or anything at San Diego Comic Con. I think to the extent that we're going to get any announcements or anything like that, that we're looking forward to D23.
Mm.
And who knows? It could be, potentially something from the parks, potentially something coming to one of the upcoming cruise ships because they've announced a whole bunch of those lately. Maybe in the live action panel that they're doing, but there's just not a whole lot of Star Wars dedicated programming for either one of these conventions right now.
Hmm.
So we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah.
And maybe they're just bottling all up for Celebration Japan next year. We'll see.
There you go. Yeah, could be.
So we have this late addition to our news, and that is that we are getting a new Ewoks miniseries from Marvel. And it's such a late edition, I wasn't actually able to really get it in our news. But the brief synopsis we get of this is that a team of Imperial-led bounty hunters and scavengers arrive on the forest moon of Endor searching for a secret cache of Imperial weaponry. Are they prepared to face off against the battle-ready Ewoks who took down so many of their ranks? Who is the mysterious new warrior Ewok returning to Bright Tree Village, and what is their connection to Wicket W. Warwick? This is being written by Steve Orlando with art by Alvaro Lopez and Laura Braga, and covers by Pete Woods, David Lopez, and John Tyler Christopher. So that's coming out this fall. And it looks like on October 9th. I don't know that I'll go pick up a copy of this, but I'll probably read it digitally at some point. I'm just having all kinds of flashbacks to Battlefront 2 and I know I've talked about this a lot in the past on this show. You know, with the play mode where you play the Ewoks hunting the stormtroopers and stuff like that. And this could be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I think it could be too. And Steve Orlando in the Marvel Online website was talking about just the world building that goes into this as well. And he was quoted as saying, "As an adult, it's an honor to challenge Wicket and bring all new Ewoks to Bright Tree Village. But not just that. There's a lot more to Endor that we'll be seeing for the first time since the Ewoks animated series. So it's a very powerful world and a powerful ecosystem, and we'll be exploring it like never before." So I think that's really cool that the world building is going to be a big focus of this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And, you know, the other thing we found out about that system, of course, in the Rise of Skywalkers in the nearby planet of Kifbir, where some of the remains of the Death Star crash. So we've been getting teases about that, but all we saw of Endor in that movie, of course, was Wicket and his son as one of the First Order Star Destroyers crashed there. But yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with this. This will be something that we have to cover, you know, probably at the end of the year or the beginning of the following year when all the issues are out here on the show. Yeah, but looking forward to that. So the last thing we've got in this week's news is that we've been getting some previews of the Star Wars Outlaws over at IGN. They have some gameplay stuff that's going on over there, and they're diving into various aspects of the game. The one that caught my attention was they had a 12-minute video previewing all the different crime syndicates that you're going to be interacting with on the game. And so I thought we'd just take a few minutes to talk about this because I am super excited for this game. I can't wait for it. It comes out August 30th for PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC. Of course, the first one is the Hutt Cartel, and we're probably the most familiar with them. It's led by Jabba the Hutt, and as it's described in the video, what you see is what you get. They aren't afraid to use force, and they take what they want. They're very powerful, and you know, Jabba rules from his base of power there on Tatooine. Do you have any other observations about the Hutts from that little video?
Not really. I overall, I think that the video was very impressive, though. I'll just put that out there. It's definitely worth the 12 minutes to watch.
Yeah. And then up next, we got the Pike Syndicate, which, of course, we've seen in the Book of Boba Fett, Clone Wars, Solo. But these Pikes are different from the Pikes that we've seen before. And the explanation for that is that they're a different group. They are not as organized as some of the other syndicates, but they have some very diverse weapons, and they are known to be spice traders. They're very wealthy, and a particular Pike known as Gorak is in charge. And I'm glad they explained to us that they're a different sect of Pikes, because it's like, wait a minute. When I first saw them, I was like,
right,
they're similar, but they're not right. And I was not ready to get into a geek off with a bunch of people about how this doesn't work in Star Wars because they didn't look like the ones that we saw in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, no, I think that they did a really good job of explaining that and the creative decisions that went into that. And just Gorak in general is being this big boss, and he's very wealthy, and his jewelry and his clothing and everything. And even just the decisions down to the coloring of the different types of outfits and things that they were wearing. So yeah, I definitely appreciated that. And I think it probably makes sense that, you know, with the reputation system that they're talking about with the different syndicates, that there would be different sects of some of these different cartels.
Yeah, we'll talk about the reputation system again in just a minute. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Of course, the next one we've got is Crimson Dawn, which is being led by Lady Kira. And they're described as mysterious. They are focused on intelligence spreading. They infiltrate places. They're the most fashionable syndicate of the ones that are out there.
As they should
and they tend to kind of stick to the shadows there. So one, I was glad to see Kira. They made some references to the War of the Bounty Hunters
Yeah, they did.
series in there, and about Crimson Dawn was the ones that auctioned off Han Frozen and Carbonite.
Uh-huh.
And Jabba won that auction. Now, it wasn't that simple, as we talked about when we reviewed that comic series. Vader came and took that
Uh-huh.
only for Boba Fett to recover it and give Han back to Jabba. It's like, I appreciated that they were trying to tie some things together. I was like, wow, that was a massive oversimplification of what happened with Crimson Dawn there.
It was, but it was also, again, just very cool the way that they also kept it a little bit more non-spoilery. Like they said,
Hmm.
"Oh, if you want to read the comics and find out like what happened." So I thought that was a nice touch too. And you could just tell that everyone that was doing all of the development for the different syndicates and things were just obviously so into their work too, which I just thought was super cool. But yeah,
Hmm.
the more fashionable, I was like, of course, as they should be. It's Lady Kira's group. So but it's very awesome that they're getting a lot more screen time, if you will, a
Hmm.
lot more lore that we can explore through this game.
Yeah. Now, the Nyx clan is the one that intrigues me the most because we know the least about them, but it's the Ashiga clan, and they're new, developed by Massive with assistance from Lucasfilm. They are based on the planet Kijimi, which of course came up in The Rise of Skywalker, and that's where the Spice Runners came from. And they are adapted from the Melito. Now, we saw one of those kind of in The Force Awakens. I think more people are familiar with them from the action figure that was released before The Force Awakens came out than they actually were
Mhm.
from any appearance in that movie. But they have no eyes. They have a lot of Japanese influences, such as samurai armor, kimonos, and the like. But they're this insect based species that tends to focus on itself and its part in the galaxy. They have a strict hierarchy. They're led by Queen Ashiga, and they have something of a hive mind. I'm fascinated by these guys. I cannot wait to learn more about them when the game comes out.
Oh yeah, I agree. And I just think that it's so cool the way that they had them set up on Kijimi with those lines
Mhm.
essentially that were more sensory to help them to get from point A to point B. And they were just very well established there.
Yeah.
And just their whole costume design and everything in the game just looks so fabulous too. Yeah, I'm very intrigued as well.
I was a little curious that they decided to go with a new criminal cartel on Kijimi as opposed to going with the Spice Runners. But
Mm.
did that occur to you at all, or what did you think?
Actually, that never even occurred to me. I mean, I thought a little bit about, "Oh, yeah, Rise of Skywalker," but I never went any further than that,
Yeah,
honestly.
because we had that whole book about Poe Dameron and
Mhm.
Zori Bliss and the Bliss family that was running those Spice Runners, which honestly was kind of a silly name for a cartel, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Uh, but but hey, I'm all down for the Ashiga clan. They look pretty cool. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah,
Now,
same.
before we get to the last syndicate, we'll just talk about this reputation system because these are the 4 syndicates that you can gain influence and reputation with through this reputation system. I like this a lot because you have different objectives that you're trying to reach so that you can pull off this big heist and get past this death mark that the Zarek Besh syndicate has put on Kay Vest, the character you're playing there. But it basically is going to give you a lot of freedom. You want to work with the
Mhm.
Hutts, you want to work with the Pikes, Crimson Dawn, the Sheikah clan, or whatever, which means, that promises like a lot of replayability for this game. This time you did it by teaming up with the Pikes. Next time, they snuck around with Crimson Dawn. But
Right.
that's pretty attractive.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, and they also said that different merchants might even offer Kay different discounts or incentives or something like that,
Mhm.
or even raise their prices, depending upon who she affiliates with or what her standing is with that reputation system. So it really does open up kind of a world of different possibilities for sure, which is really cool.
Yeah. Like one point in that video, they had her like talking to a character and she had to make a choice whether she was going to finish a mission for the Huts or pick up, I think it was with the Pikes. I can't remember
Hmm.
which.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, you have to make some choices and that could be a challenge. All
Yeah.
right. So the last syndicate that we talked about was Zarek Besh, and they're outside the representation system. They are your antagonist in all this. The leader, whose name escapes me at the moment, and the closed captioning was not accurately translating when I was watching the video, has placed this death mark on Kay's head. And so, they've got some ominous looking costumes. They're kind of boxy helmets types and things like that. But these you can interact with. You just can't gain reputation with, which I think I'm fine. But what do you think about Zerg Bash?
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And, just saying like you need to be intimidated by them because
Mhm.
that's just kind of how they are. And you need to avoid them at any cost.
Indeed. All right. So, like I said, this is going to be arriving on August 30th. I don't know. I think at the first playthrough, based on what I saw alone, I'm going to try for the Ashigi clan and working with them just
Yeah.
because I'm the most curious about them. But
Very
it would
cool.
be cool to see Kira again. So,
Oh,
yeah,
for
we'll see what
sure.
happens there.
So Xbox, PC, PlayStation, all of the above.
Yeah. Well, we have a PlayStation 5 and I've already pre-ordered it. So here it
Nice.
comes. Okay, well then that'll do it for this week's look at Star Wars news here on Podcast Stardust. Thank you all for joining us for it. We hope you've enjoyed the discussion. And if you did, make sure you've subscribed to Podcast Stardust on your podcatcher of choice. I'd like to remind you can find all past episodes over on retrozap.com, which is home to a bunch of other great podcasts such as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Case Files, Doomcast, Superhero Suite, Enjoy Stuff, you name it. There's a podcast at RetroZap covering some of your favorite aspects of geek culture. And as always, we are very appreciative of your rating and reviews on whatever podcatcher that you use that supports such things, especially if that's Apple Podcasts. And we love it when you share the show and your favorite episodes on social media with your friends. Those are all great ways of spreading the word, helping others discover us and find out exactly what we're up to here on Podcast Stardust. So with those things having been said, Jay, you want to remind everybody one more time what our social media contacts are?
Sure. And we definitely appreciate any way that you can share out the show. And welcome to all of our new listeners out there as well, because we do continue to grow and it's because of all of our family in Podcast Stardust. So continue to do that on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Podcast Stardust. And you can always check out our Pinterest boards. And we also have some YouTube outlets. So we are on the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music. So head over to both of those, like, subscribe, share those out. And you can also interact with us there as well. So please do that. And then we also have a Discord room on the RetroZap Discord server. So if you'd like to engage in some real-time chatter, you can head over there. The link to that will be in our show notes. And while you're over there, you can also check out the plethora of other rooms with all of the different RetroZap shows that have their own Discord rooms. And we also have a TeePublic store. So you can check us out at teepublic.com. We have 7 different show logo designs available on apparel, home goods, tote bags, everything in between. And that link is also in our show notes. And one more link that you can find in our show notes is our link to Saber Masters, where we are still partnering with Saber Masters, the lightsaber company that puts out some really awesome battle-ready lightsabers. So you can take your pick at one of several different hilts and designs, build your own, and you can get a discount if you put in the code STARDUST when you're checking out. That will get you an extra $10 off and also helps to support the show. So that's at sabermasters.com, or you can hit up the link in our show notes as well. So with that, Dennis, why don't you let everybody know what you got going on in any other areas of the podcasting galaxy?
So my wife and I like to talk Star Trek, and we're doing that over on Warp Trails, which is a RetroZap podcast feed exclusive show, which you can also find over on retrozap.com. We've been talking about the new Star Trek that's been coming out on Paramount Plus. So think previous seasons of Discovery, Picard, Lower Decks, and Strange New Worlds. We're waiting for season 5 of Lower Decks, and when that's around, we'll have some new episodes for you. Jay, what's going on cosplay?
All right. Well, you can always catch me on my Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay. And I'm over there all the time, stories, posting different things. I don't have anything new coming out right now, probably not until end of August, early September, but working on some new things. And you can always catch me as Ahsoka, 2 different forms of Hera, the Force Sister Inquisitor, and original concept Mandalorian based on Tahiri Vela from Legends. So eager to get back into things. I've had a little lull for a while, so I am ready to get back on the circuit. So once again, that is j.snipscosplay.
All right. So upcoming on the show, Wednesday, we'll be getting into the next installment of our The Phantom Menace series. And then on Friday, it should be the news. But if there's not much going on, then I'll figure something else out. I'll let you know. All right. But with that, thanks for listening to episode 758 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great week. And until next time, may the Force be with you.